we used to have 100 people in here at a time. All right, well, the brew house that you're looking at now, some of you have seen it before, or at least you saw the last version of it. For those of you who didn't, only several weeks ago, there used to be unit tanks all around the outside of the room. They were 50-barrel tanks, 25-barrel system. Most days it grew twice. This was actually a separate building. Or it still is a separate building, but we've gone through the wall. That's where our work table used to be, and blown through the next space, which we'll go into next. So, now behind us you see new work production, and well, I can do it, but if you want to, Wolfgang, either way. I mean, basically, we had to make a decision between automated and largely non-automated system, which in some ways was a difficult choice because on one hand we've gone through the whole process of going into traditional bottle re-fermentation, and we're expanding all this stuff that we're doing with barrel aging and whatever else, so it felt kind of counterintuitive or emotionally wrong to go in the other direction and put automation in place. But at the end of the day, my personal feeling is, and I hope the brewers are feeling the same way, is that well, we could all tell you that everybody is working so hard we barely even have time to talk to each other. I mean, there's like trying to put together a creative meeting to figure out what new beers we're going to create, and it could take a month to find a time when everybody is going to be in the same place at the same time. So automating work production, I'm actually thoughtful, hopeful that it's something that's going to make us give us more time to actually think about what we want to think about, which is making beer. Also, if you're going to get up to the point where you're going to be producing a large volume of wort and therefore beer, if you're looking at systems that require a large staff over a large number of hours, and you do the math of all the people you're going to need, all the people you're going to train, etc., all the people who you're never actually going to see when you as brewmaster are not there operating this system, it's another area where where automation comes in handy. And frankly, I think that nobody here feels very romantic about scrubbing tanks, or there are bits of that we thought we would otherwise miss, which is one reason why we kept the old system, and we're still going to run it a few times a month. Anybody who comes in to work here, will end up brewing on that system before they brew on the new one. But this is going to be largely automated, and we worked with these guys to really size it to meet what it is that we wanted to do. So if you want to take them through it, one thing I will say is that as you go into this, things that we never really thought that hard about, like, okay, we have a hop doser over here between these guys. That puts all three hop additions in there. Well, how much hop will you ever actually add? So having to figure out, okay, what's the hoppiest beer that we make now? How much hoppier a beer are we likely to make? What adjustments might we make with different hop varieties, etc. And you have to come up with a size. And you find out that as you go through this, you have to come up with a size for basically everything that you might do in the future. And when you do all sorts of weird stuff the way that we do and most of us do, there's a lot of work that goes into that. I'm still trying to think of how, for example, right now when we do wit beers and things like that, we use orange peel, we got mesh bags, we sit there dunking it like tea leaf. This system might not work quite so well that way. So how all those things run through. I was just telling one of my guys, hey, wait a minute, we can use that hop, the hop grinder. I never thought about it, how we might get ginger into a beer in the future. We'll grind it through that, through that. So there's constant evolution about thinking about how you're going to use systems, etc. So why don't you talk about?
Yeah, it's funny when you bring up the hop dosage, because of course when we talk about the hop loads we have in Germany, and even our really bitter pilsners, we're talking a fraction of what you guys are doing here. So we just had, prior to Brooklyn, we were doing Meantime Brewing Company in London. Meantime being a brewhouse with 100 hectoliter size, so 85 barrels, so a step larger than Brooklyn here.
This is 50.
And we've been doing those hop dosings, and everyone's like, oh, we built, small cylinder component containers. And then when Carl called up Garrett, he said, Garrett, you better bring up, some number over here, how much hops you're going to use. And I see like Carl on the phone like the next 2 days, and he'll be like talking with Garrett, Again, build this freaking big hump doses again, So talking about a smaller system, but still hops. And that's what I tried to lead to before. And when you design a system today, you don't know what you're going to do in 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, because things have done so crazy, in the way our consumers react to those beers. If you would have told me when I worked in Chesapeake in 1984, did an amber beer, 11.2 Plato, 11.4 Plato. It had 24 bitterness units. Well, nobody bought it because it had color in the beer, it had hops in the beer. If you had told me at that time, that people would drink an 18 Plato beer at 60, 70, 90 BUs, I would have said, no way. And now, it seems like the most selling beers in the U.S. are actually beers that are, in the range of 16 Plato. I mean, our clients, their main selling beers are actually 16 Plato beers. So you have to size the system for a 16 Plato beer. When we do a brewery in Germany, everybody says, well, our regular beers are 11 Plato, 12 Plato. Well, I do occasionally a Märzen beer. And of course, at Christmas time or springtime, I do a Bock beer. If I do a Bock beer, I have 16-degree Plato or 18-degree Platos, and you sell me a 100-barrel system, I consider brewing only casting out 80 barrels, so I don't have a lauter pump that's really wide. But if your beers, are throughout the line 16 or 18 Plato beers, you got to size the lauter pump on those heavy beers. So that's why it keeps getting bigger, bigger. And but if you don't size it properly, you're stuck in 2 years, and then you start up doing 2/3 batches when you actually need capacity-wise 4 batches.